Welcome to Candle by the Sea, a gentle bedtime story designed to help you relax, let go of the day, and drift into peaceful sleep. Close your eyes. Let the day drift away like a tide returning to the sea. Tonight we follow Elara, a gentle soul who walks the quiet shore, guided only by the light of a single candle. The waves whisper, the stars listen, and the wind carries her story across the sleeping world. Breathe softly now. With each breath, let the weight of the day fade from your shoulders. You are safe. You are home. This is Candle by the Sea, a story of light, calm, and the quiet beauty of the soul. If you enjoy this journey of peace and gentle dreams, consider subscribing to our channel so more stories like this can find their way to you. Let the sound of the ocean guide you inward. Let peace unfold like dawn upon the water. Let's begin. Candle by the Sea, Elara's story. Part 1. Arrival at the shore. The world was hushed beneath a velvet sky. Only the soft murmur of the sea moved through the night, gentle, rhythmic, eternal. It was the kind of sound that seemed older than memory, older than time itself. Each wave rose and fell like a slow breath, and the air shimmered faintly with salt and moonlight. Elara walked along the shore with her sandals in hand, her bare feet sinking into the cool, damp sand. The night wrapped around her shoulders like a shawl, soft, silvery, and calm. In her other hand, she carried a small candle enclosed in glass, its flame protected from the wind by a rounded shell of light. It flickered with quiet determination, glowing gold against the deep blue of the sea. She had come to this shore many times before, though she could never say exactly why. Something in her heart always led her here when the world felt heavy, or her mind too full of noise. The sea had a way of smoothing her thoughts, of making even her worries dissolve into something tender and manageable. Tonight, the tide was low. The waves curled around the stones like sleepy cats and retreated, leaving trails of foam that glistened in the moonlight. The stars above were clear and steady, tiny candles in their own vast sky. Elara lifted her gaze to them and smiled softly, as though greeting old friends. She found a quiet cove not far from the dunes, a place cradled by the arms of two tall rocks. The water there was calm, and the sand smooth as silk. She placed the candle gently upon a flat stone and watched its glow spread out in a halo. For a long moment, she simply breathed. The air smelled faintly of seaweed and jasmine from the gardens behind the cliffs. Each inhale filled her with freshness. Each exhale released something she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She sat down on the sand and folded her legs beneath her, her dress whispering softly as it settled around her ankles. The gentle hush of waves was the only sound, steady, dependable, like the heartbeat of the world. Elara watched as the candlelight shimmered across the water, mingling with moonlight and reflection. It reminded her of all the nights she had spent wishing for calm, for stillness, for the sense of being exactly where she belonged. Here, beside the sea, she always found it. In the distance, a faint wind stirred the reeds. It brushed her hair across her face, and she tucked it behind her ear with an absent smile. The moment felt suspended between waking and dreaming, as though the whole world was listening, waiting. She looked out toward the horizon, where the line between sky and water blurred into a soft glow. "It feels alive," she whispered, though there was no one nearby to hear her. Her voice mingled with the sigh of the waves. "It always feels alive." And it did. The ocean was a living presence, gentle, but endless. It spoke in languages she could almost understand, in ripples and rhythm, in the hush of water sliding over sand. A memory stirred within her. The first time she had come here, many seasons ago. She had been younger, uncertain, restless. She had brought no candle then, only questions. The waves had not answered in words, but in feelings. They had taught her how to breathe with the earth, how to let go of things that weighed too heavily. Now, years later, she still carried that lesson. Each visit to the sea felt like returning to a sacred place within herself. She reached out and traced a small pattern in the sand with her finger, a spiral, soft and imperfect. The candle's reflection wavered on the wet surface of the sand beside it, like a second flame floating in the water. In the silence, Elara began to hum softly. It was not a song she knew. It was more like a sound that belonged to the sea itself. The melody drifted low and slow, merging with the whispering waves. It carried no words, only warmth. The moon climbed higher, pale and patient, illuminating the edges of the rocks. The silver light touched Elara's hair, turning it to strands of starlight. The shadows shifted with the movement of the water, stretching and retreating like breaths. As she watched, a small shape glided near the shore, a jellyfish, translucent and glowing faintly blue. It pulsed gently in the shallow water, its movement steady and mesmerizing. Elara smiled at the sight, leaning forward just slightly. The creature's glow mingled with the golden candlelight, creating ripples of soft color that shimmered on the sand. She felt an almost childlike wonder at its presence. "Hello, little one," she murmured, her voice barely above the sound of the sea. The jellyfish drifted closer, unafraid, as though recognizing a kindred calm. Time passed unnoticed. The waves whispered, the candle flickered, and the jellyfish moved gracefully in the shallows. The night stretched on, but it didn't feel long. It felt infinite and still, like a single, continuous breath. Elara leaned back on her hands and looked up once more. The sky above was a vast canvas of darkness scattered with light. Every star seemed to shimmer with meaning. She wondered if perhaps each one was a reflection of a soul resting peacefully somewhere, a thought that filled her with quiet comfort. The sound of the tide was now her heartbeat. The cool air brushed her skin, grounding her in the moment. She whispered, "I am here, I am safe." and the sea seemed to whisper it back. Somewhere far down the coast, a lighthouse beam swept across the water, its white arc slicing gently through the dark. Elara watched it move, watched the pulse of light appear and fade again in rhythm. It reminded her of the candle beside her, small, yes, but steadfast. The candle's flame bent slightly in the breeze, but did not go out. Its glow touched Elara's hands, painting them with soft warmth. She cupped her palms around it, shielding it for a moment, and then released it again, letting the air breathe freely around it. There was a peace in that gesture, a trust that light could hold its own, even in wind and shadow. The waves reached higher for a moment, brushing against the rock where her candle sat. The reflection trembled, as if the sea wanted to touch the flame, to greet it. Elara watched, transfixed by the subtle dance between fire and water. Her mind was still now. The constant hum of thoughts had quieted. She could feel her heartbeat slow, her breath deepen. She closed her eyes. Behind her eyelids, the world became rhythm and warmth, the rise and fall of the ocean, the pulse of the candle's glow, the steady comfort of existence itself. Minutes passed this way, or perhaps hours, she could not tell. Time was soft here, fluid like the tide. When she opened her eyes again, the stars seemed brighter. The moon had climbed nearly to its peak, its reflection stretching long across the water like a silver path. The candle's flame had steadied, burning clean and golden. Elara smiled faintly and whispered, "Thank you." To the sea, to the night, to the stillness that always waited for her here. The words disappeared into the sound of the waves, carried out over the water. She leaned back, resting her head on her folded arms. Her hair spread softly over the sand. The gentle rhythm of the ocean played like a lullaby around her. The candle burned on, casting its quiet circle of light into the darkness. The waves sighed and retreated. The stars watched in silence, and Elara, wrapped in the embrace of the sea, closed her eyes once more, not to sleep yet, but to listen. The world exhaled, and all was peace. Part 2. The flickering candle and gentle companions. The sea had settled into an easy rhythm, its voice a low and endless murmur. The candle's glow shimmered softly on the water, bending with each small gust of wind, yet never fading. Elara watched the flame dance with the tide, two forces so different, yet both alive with quiet strength. She drew her knees close to her chest and wrapped her arms around them, resting her chin upon her folded hands. The warmth of the candle touched her face, gentle as a whispered comfort. The soft sand beneath her felt cool and steady. She could feel the heartbeat of the earth pulsing faintly through it, slow, patient, eternal. For a while, she said nothing at all. There was no need. The silence between the waves was full of conversation, an ancient language of peace. Her thoughts drifted like leaves on a slow-moving stream. She thought of all the people who might be sleeping under this same moon. Travelers in faraway lands, fishermen out on dark waters, someone sitting by a window miles away, gazing at the same sky. It filled her heart with a gentle sense of connection, a reminder that even when one feels alone, there is always some quiet thread that binds all living souls together. The candle flickered again, its light reflected in Elara's eyes. "You've come far, haven't you?" she murmured to the flame. "Through wind and darkness, and still you shine." The candle swayed slightly, as though bowing to her words. A soft laugh escaped her lips, not from amusement, but from affection. She leaned closer, letting her breath mingle with the faint warmth of the flame. "Sometimes," she whispered, "I wish I could be like you, small but strong, quiet but full of light." The sea answered with a sigh that brushed over the sand, lifting a few grains and setting them down again, as if in agreement. Out beyond the cove, the waves glimmered faintly in the moonlight. Tiny silver fish darted through the shallow water, their movements quick and luminous. And then, from the shadows between two rocks, a small silver fox appeared. Elara froze for only a moment, not from fear, but from wonder. The fox stepped lightly, its paws leaving barely a trace on the sand. Its fur shone faintly in the moonlight, and its eyes reflected the candle's glow like tiny mirrors of gold. The creature paused a few steps away, its nose twitching as it studied her. "Hello there," Elara said softly. "You can come closer if you like. I don't bite." The fox tilted its head, as if weighing her words, then took a few tentative steps forward. When it reached the edge of her circle of light, it sat down, tail curled neatly around its paws. For a long moment, they simply watched each other, two quiet beings sharing the same patch of earth. The only sound was the sea breathing between them. Elara smiled faintly. "I think you understand," she whispered. "Sometimes it's enough just to be still together." The fox blinked slowly, eyes soft and untroubled. It gave a short sigh, the kind that sounded almost human, and rested its chin upon its paws. Something inside Elara loosened, a knot she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. There was comfort in the company of another creature who asked for nothing, who brought only presence. The candlelight cast long, slow shadows behind them, painting ripples of gold and amber across the sand. The sea hissed softly as the tide shifted, and the moon floated higher, patient and pale. Above, a single gull cried in the distance, the sound echoing like a lonely flute. Then silence again, vast, tender, complete. Elara lay down slowly, propping herself on one elbow, and reached out toward the fox. It didn't move away. Its fur gleamed like silk beneath the moonlight, and for an instant, she imagined she could feel the faint hum of its heartbeat, steady, calm, one with her own. "Do you ever wonder," she said quietly, "if the sea remembers us?" The fox lifted its gaze to the horizon, where the line between water and sky had softened into mist. Its ears twitched once. "I think it does," she continued. "Maybe not our faces, but our energy. Every time we stand before it, every breath we take, every secret we whisper into the waves, maybe all of it becomes part of the tide." The thought filled her chest with warmth. She let out a slow breath, her words fading into the sound of the surf. The candle fluttered, and for an instant its flame dimmed, then steadied again. Elara smiled softly. "That's right," she whispered. "Even when the wind comes, you hold on." The fox rose to its feet, shook out its fur, and stepped closer to the water's edge. It stared into the waves, ears pricked, tail swaying lightly. Elara followed its gaze. Beneath the rippling surface, tiny lights began to appear, faint blue glows moving in the shallows like drifting stars. Bioluminescent plankton. The sea was full of them tonight. Each time a wave broke, 1,000 points of light flared briefly, then vanished again. The fox took a cautious step forward, watching the glowing surf with fascination. Elara gasped softly at the beauty before her. She stood, brushing sand from her dress, and walked to the water's edge. The sand cooled beneath her feet, and as she dipped her toes into the tide, the glowing plankton lit up around her, swirling in response to her movement. It was as if the sea were alive, with its own starlight. Elara laughed quietly, her voice blending with the rhythm of the waves. "It's beautiful," she whispered to the fox, who stood beside her now. "The sea carries its own sky." The fox tilted its head upward, watching the real stars glint above, then looked back at the glowing water below. Two heavens, one reflected in the other. For a moment, Elara imagined that if she stepped farther into the tide, she could walk across that glowing surface, guided only by the stars above and the lights below. But she stayed where she was, letting the cold water lap gently at her ankles. The sensation was grounding, a reminder that peace is found not in reaching farther, but in being present where one stands. She breathed in deeply, feeling the salt air fill her lungs. The night pressed softly around her, neither empty nor heavy, simply whole. The fox returned to the rock where the candle stood and circled twice before lying down beside it. Its tail brushed the base of the candle's glass, making the flame tremble playfully. Elara walked back to join it, each step leaving faint, glowing footprints that slowly faded behind her. She sat once more on the sand, close enough to feel the candle's warmth against her arm. The flame danced gently, its light catching in the fox's fur and the small, smooth shells scattered nearby. In that quiet, she began to hum again, a soft tune that matched the ocean's rhythm. The song had no clear beginning or end, just a gentle rise and fall, like breathing. The fox's eyes closed halfway. Its chest rose and fell in slow time. Elara watched the sea, watched the light upon it, and thought how every part of this moment, the candle, the fox, the water, Even her own heartbeat moved together in perfect harmony. The waves rolled forward and back, carrying whispers too soft to understand, yet full of meaning all the same. "I think," Elara said softly, "this is what peace feels like. Not silence, just balance." The fox made a small sound, almost like agreement. She smiled and reached toward the candle, tracing her finger along the glass. Inside, the flame wavered, casting delicate lines of light across her skin. She imagined that if she could look closely enough, she would see her dreams reflected in that tiny golden fire. And perhaps, she thought, the sea could see them too. The tide crept closer, and the whisper of the waves turned slower, deeper, as though the night itself was growing drowsy. Elara lay down on her side, her head resting on her folded arm, facing the candle and the fox. The sound of the sea became a lullaby. Each wave brushed the shore in soft rhythm, like a heartbeat, slow, strong, infinite. Her eyes grew heavy, but she did not sleep yet. She lingered in that space between wakefulness and dreams, where thoughts become images and the world feels painted in starlight. The fox's breathing was steady beside her. The candle's flame burned on, unwavering, eternal in its small way, and above, the moon kept its silent watch, bathing everything in silver calm. The night deepened, stretching long and wide around them. But here, in this tiny cove, there was only peace, only breath, only light. Part 3. Whispering waves and moonlight reflections. The night was still and breathing, the kind of stillness that hums softly in the bones. Elara stirred slightly, opening her eyes as a cool wind brushed her cheek. The candle's flame was smaller now, but steady, a golden heart in the darkness. The fox still lay curled beside it, dreaming gently, its chest rising and falling with the quiet rhythm of the tide. For a moment, Elara forgot where she was. The sea's voice filled everything, soft, endless, patient. Then memory returned, not as a thought, but as a feeling, the warmth of belonging, the peace of surrender. She sat up slowly, brushing grains of sand from her palms. The air smelled of salt and moonlight, cool and clean. Overhead, the stars shimmered like dust scattered across velvet. Each seemed to pulse with its own faint rhythm, as though echoing the heartbeat of the sea. Elara gazed at them, her eyes tracing quiet constellations she half remembered from childhood. Her grandmother's voice came to her, gentle and distant. "Every star you see has already spoken. Its light is just finding its way to you." She smiled at the thought. Perhaps peace, too, was like that, something born long ago, still traveling toward the heart until it's ready to be felt. The fox stirred and yawned, then stood and shook out its silvery fur. The flame wavered in greeting, and the little creature padded down toward the water's edge once more. Elara followed, her steps slow, her bare feet sinking softly into the damp sand. The tide had crept higher during the night, reaching for her ankles with each gentle wave. The water was cool, but not cold, wrapping around her feet like silk. Across the horizon, the moon began its slow descent, painting a soft path of light across the water, a shimmering bridge of silver leading into infinity. Elara watched it quietly. For a long time, she didn't move. There was no need to. The sea spoke to her without words, its rhythm the language of presence, its breath a lullaby for the soul. She closed her eyes, letting the sound seep into her. Each wave seemed to whisper something, not in sentences, but in feelings. A gentle memory, a soft letting go, a promise that nothing was ever truly lost. As she breathed, she began to sense something else, a vibration beneath the water, faint but steady. It wasn't frightening, only ancient. It felt like the world breathing from its very roots. When she opened her eyes, she saw the reflection of the moon trembling on the surface of the water. The reflection rippled with every small movement, breaking into pieces, then reuniting again. It reminded her of the way peace can come and go, not lost, just shifting shape. A soft murmur left her lips, almost without thought. Even when it breaks, the light finds its way back. The fox turned its head slightly, as if listening. Its golden eyes caught the moonlight and glimmered. Elara took another slow step into the tide. The water rose around her shins, carrying the faint glow of plankton. The sand beneath her feet shifted gently, alive and breathing. She reached down and let her fingers skim the surface of the sea. Tiny blue sparks followed her movement, trails of light that faded as soon as they appeared. "It's like painting with time," she whispered. "Every touch disappears, yet it still mattered." She closed her eyes again, and this time she imagined she could hear voices carried by the water, not loud, not even distinct, but soft and melodic. The voices of the waves, perhaps, or the dreams of the sea itself. They hummed in tones that vibrated through her chest, low, comforting, steady. It was as though the sea was singing a song that existed before the world began, and she had just happened to remember it again. She began to hum along gently, quietly, her voice blending with the sea's eternal note. The sound felt familiar, like breathing through the heart instead of the lungs. The fox tilted its head, then let out a soft, almost musical sound of its own, a high tone that joined her melody perfectly. Elara smiled, eyes still closed. "You know the song too," she murmured. "Of course you do." Together they hummed with the sea, and for a few eternal moments there was no separation, no Elara, no fox, no sky or shore, just sound, light, and stillness merging into one. When she opened her eyes again, the world seemed gentler. The sea glowed faintly. The stars had softened to pale embers, and the candle still burned behind her, its light steady despite the wind. She turned back toward it and felt a small ache of gratitude. The flame, though simple, had been her anchor, a constant among shifting tides. She knelt beside it and cupped her hands around the glass, protecting it for a moment from the breeze. "You've stayed," she whispered, "through night and wind. Thank you." The candlelight wavered, then steadied once more, a silent acknowledgement. Elara sat back, crossing her legs and resting her hands in her lap. The fox came to lie beside her again, tail wrapped around its paws, eyes half closed. "Do you think," she asked softly, "that peace can be a friend? Not something we chase, but something that chooses to sit beside us." The fox blinked slowly, the reflection of the flame glowing in its eyes. "I used to think peace was something far away," she continued, her voice barely above the sea's whisper. "Something I had to reach for. But here, it feels like it's been beside me all along, waiting for me to be still enough to notice." She looked out over the water. The moon's reflection had faded into a pale mist, and the horizon shimmered faintly with the earliest hint of dawn. "Elara and the candle by the sea," she whispered with a smile. "That sounds like a story someone might tell long after we're gone." The fox's ear twitched, and for a moment Elara imagined it smiling, not with its mouth, but with its presence. She rested her hands on her knees, closing her eyes once more. The sea's rhythm began to match her breath. Each inhale brought the tide closer, each exhale sent it away. In, out, a perfect balance. Time dissolved. There was no before, no after, only the now, shimmering softly like the candle's light. In that endless moment, Elara felt the world breathing with her. The sea, the wind, the stars, even the sand beneath her. Everything was connected, everything alive. The candle flickered gently, casting a circle of light that pulsed in time with her heart. And as she breathed, she realized that peace was not an escape. It was a homecoming. A soft whisper passed through the air, carrying the scent of salt and morning. It might have been the sea or the wind or something unseen. A quiet presence offering comfort. "You are where you need to be," it seemed to say. Elara's lips curved in a faint smile. "I know," she breathed. The fox's head lowered, and it settled once again beside the candle. The waves softened, the night stretched wider, and the world, vast and gentle, folded around them in calm. Above, the stars shimmered their last before dawn. Below, the sea murmured its lullaby, and between them sat Elara, candle by the sea, wrapped in the rhythm of eternity. Part 4. The Night's Lullaby. The sea had begun to quiet itself even more, as though growing tired of its own song. The waves that reached the shore came softly now, their white crests fading into whispers. Above, the moon hung lower, pale and weary, like a lantern that had burned through most of its oil. Elara sat close to the candle, watching its flame shimmer against the glass. The fox still lay beside her, eyes half closed, its breathing even and calm. She could feel the night folding around them like a great, warm cloak. Nothing moved quickly. quickly here. Even the stars seemed to drift lazily across the sky, their light diffused through a thin veil of sea mist. The air was filled with the scent of salt, cool stone, and the faint sweetness of night-blooming flowers that clung to the cliffs behind her. Elara drew her shawl tighter around her shoulders and looked out at the endless stretch of dark water. A faint ribbon of light had begun to form along the horizon, not yet dawn, but the earliest whisper of it. The moment between night and morning, where the world holds its breath. Her thoughts moved like clouds, slow and formless. She wondered what kept the sea in motion, what ancient promise made it return again and again to the shore, even after retreating so many times. Perhaps it, too, longed for connection, a rhythm older than memory. The fox stirred and stretched, its fur glimmering faintly in the candlelight. It stepped closer to Elara, brushing its nose against her hand. The touch was so light it felt like a thought passing through her skin. "Good morning," she whispered, smiling faintly. "Or maybe it's still night." The fox tilted its head, as if considering her words, then turned its gaze to the sea. Together, they sat in silence, companions in stillness. Elara traced patterns in the sand with her finger, spirals and circles, shapes that disappeared as soon as the tide reached them. She found something peaceful in their impermanence. There was beauty in things that didn't need to last. After a while, she began to hum again, this time a softer tune, not quite a song, but a sound that filled the air between her and the sea. It carried no words, just warmth. The fox's ears twitched, and soon its tail began to move slightly with the rhythm, brushing the sand in time with her melody. As she hummed, she thought of the candle's light, small, fragile, yet unyielding. It reminded her of the light that lives in every heart, quiet, patient, eternal. When her song faded, the sea seemed to pick it up, continuing the melody in its endless sighs. The waves moved with slow grace, each one carrying the echo of her voice farther into the distance. Elara closed her eyes. She imagined her song reaching beyond the horizon to distant shores, to sleeping villages, to hearts that might need a fragment of peace. The thought filled her with warmth. Even a whisper could travel far if carried by the sea. The candle flickered, and she opened her eyes again. Its flame seemed stronger now, as if fed by the music. She smiled softly. "I think," she said quietly, "that the sea listens." The fox lifted its head and gave a short, soft sound, neither bark nor cry, something in between, a sound of agreement. Elara turned her gaze back to the horizon. The pale ribbon of light had grown wider, brushing faint gold upon the water. The stars began to fade, one by one, returning their glow to the coming day. She felt no rush for morning to arrive. The beauty of this moment was in its slowness, the way the night released its hold little by little, the way the sea's voice grew softer, as if preparing to sleep itself. The world was shifting, not in sound or movement, but in breath. Everything exhaled. A calm settled deep inside her chest, a kind of stillness that had no need for words or reasons. It felt like trust that everything was unfolding exactly as it should. The fox came closer and lay its head in her lap. Elara rested her hand on its soft fur, feeling the quiet pulse beneath it. Together they sat, breathing in time with the tide. "I used to chase meaning," she murmured, "always searching for signs, for answers. But maybe meaning isn't something we find. Maybe it's what happens when we stop running and listen." The sea gave a slow, low sigh, as though to say yes. Elara looked down at the fox. "Do you ever feel it? That something larger than us is holding everything together, not with force, but with care." The fox's tail swayed gently. It didn't need to answer. The truth was already there, all around them, in the candlelight, the water, the slow turning of the earth beneath their feet. The mist began to rise from the sea, soft and silvery. It drifted toward the shore like a dream unraveling. Through it, the moon still hung faintly, blurred but present. Elara reached for the candle again, steadying it as the breeze passed through. The flame leaned, trembled, then straightened once more. "Even the smallest light," she whispered, "knows how to endure." The fox gave a quiet sigh and closed its eyes again. Its breathing grew slower, matching the gentle rhythm of the tide. Elara followed its lead. She folded her legs beneath her, resting her hands upon her knees, palms upward. The posture felt natural, like a gesture of openness to the world. She breathed deeply, in and out, letting each breath carry her deeper into stillness. With every inhale, she felt herself gather the calm of the sea. With every exhale, she released the weight of everything she no longer needed to carry. In the silence that followed, the world felt infinite. The line between her and the sea, between the candle and the stars, began to blur. She was no longer simply beside the sea. She was part of it. The thought came not as a word, but as knowing. "I am not separate from what is peaceful. I am part of it." The wind brushed her hair, cool and tender. The candle's flame flickered once, twice, and steadied again. A pulse of gold against the pale mist. Somewhere out beyond the waves, a whale's distant song rolled through the deep, low and resonant. The sound passed through her like a vibration, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Tears pricked her eyes, not from sadness, but from awe. Everything was alive. Everything was breathing together. The fox shifted slightly in her lap, nestling closer. Elara smiled and placed a gentle hand on its back, feeling the warmth of life beneath her palm. She whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure to whom. Maybe to the sea, maybe to the moment, maybe to everything. Above them, the clouds thinned, revealing one last faint star, the final light of the night, refusing to fade. Elara gazed at it for a long time. Its glow was small, but unwavering, just like the candle's flame beside her. She thought of how even the smallest lights can hold entire worlds of hope. Then slowly, she closed her eyes again, surrendering to the rhythm of the waves, to the deep and steady pulse of the world. The sea, the fox, the candle, the air, all blended into a single, endless lullaby. The night exhaled. The earth turned softly beneath her, and Elara drifted deeper into peace. Part 5. The Dawn and the Sea's Secret. The candle's flame burned quietly as the world began to shift. The sky, once deep and endless blue-black, was now a gradient of soft gray and muted rose. The stars had faded almost completely, their light folded back into the fabric of the sky. The air had changed to still cool, but with a promise of warmth just beyond the horizon. Elara opened her eyes. She hadn't truly slept. She had simply drifted in and out of stillness, caught between breath and dream. Her body felt light, her mind unburdened, as though the sea had washed away every lingering thought during the night. The fox stirred beside her, stretching its slender body and shaking sand from its fur. It yawned softly, the sound barely more than a sigh. The candle still glowed faintly, though its flame was smaller now. A golden heart fighting gently against the growing dawn. "Good morning," Elara whispered. Her voice carried through the mist, dissolving into the air like a note at the end of a lullaby. The fox looked up at her, eyes bright, reflecting the first light of day. Then, with quiet grace, it padded closer to the water, leaving faint prints behind in the damp sand. Elara followed. The tide had gone out, revealing small pools between the stones, tiny mirrors that caught the blush of the sky. Each one held a reflection of the world, a shard of cloud, a shimmer of light, a fragment of eternity. She crouched beside one of the pools and looked into it. Her reflection was faint and soft-edged, blending with the sky above. For a moment, she didn't see herself as a person, but as part of the water, the light, the air. "Perhaps this is what we are," she murmured. "Reflections of something infinite." The fox tilted its head at her voice, then dipped its paw into the same pool. Ripples spread across the surface, distorting both their reflections, until they were one. Elara smiled gently. "Yes," she whispered, "together." The wind shifted slightly, carrying the scent of salt and dawn blossoms from the cliffs. The sea shimmered with the faintest light, each wave painted silver pink. It was neither night nor day, the hour between worlds, soft and sacred. Elara sat again beside the candle, which burned bravely against the brightening sky. She held her hands near it, not for warmth, but for connection. The flame quivered as though aware that its time was nearing its end. "You've done beautifully," she whispered. "You've carried the night." The fox came to sit beside her, watching the horizon. Together they waited, saying nothing, letting the light unfold slowly, like petals opening on a morning flower. And then, as the first edge of the sun appeared, a thin line of gold cresting the sea. The candle's flame flared once, bright and clear, before finally softening into smoke. The wick glowed red for a heartbeat, then went dark. Elara didn't move. She watched the thin ribbon of smoke curl upward, twisting delicately before vanishing into the dawn air. The fox looked at her, eyes calm. "It's all right," she said softly. "It's only gone where it was always meant to go." She traced a fingertip along the edge of the glass, still warm from the light that had lived there. A sense of completion settled around her, not as an ending, but as a return. The sea shimmered brighter now. The sun lifted higher, spilling gold across the water, gilding each wave with gentle light. The world exhaled, slow, deep, renewed. Elara rose to her feet. She closed her eyes, letting the sunlight touch her face, the wind lift her hair. The sea spoke softly, its tone lighter now, full of warmth. She whispered, "I understand." Peace, she realized, wasn't something that appeared with silence or stillness alone. It was born from acceptance, the understanding that everything changes, everything flows, and yet the essence of it all remains. The fox walked a few steps ahead, pausing at the edge of the tide. It looked back at her once, tail swaying gently, then gazed toward the endless stretch of water, as if inviting her to look deeper. Elara joined it, standing side by side at the line where land met sea. The waves brushed over their feet, cool and playful. She felt no need to speak. There was nothing left to say. Everything worth knowing was already here, in the rhythm of the tide, in the warmth of the sun, in the soft heartbeat beneath the sand. The fox turned toward her one last time, eyes luminous. And then, with quiet grace, it stepped forward into the shallow water. The light caught its fur, turning it almost transparent, a shimmer of silver and dawn. Elara watched, breath still, as the fox continued toward the horizon. Each step it took left ripples of light that slowly faded back into the sea. When it reached the deeper water, it paused, looking back at her. For a moment, its reflection on the waves was perfectly clear. Fox and light, sea and sky, all one. Then, as the sun rose fully, the mist lifted, and the fox was gone, not vanished in sadness, but absorbed into the great calm of the world. Elara stood alone, but she didn't feel alone. The peace that surrounded her was full and living, vast as the sea itself. The candle's glass still rested in the sand beside her, empty, but glimmering in the light. She picked it up gently, holding it close to her heart. It was cool now, but she imagined she could still feel a faint warmth within the echo of the flame, the memory of night. "Thank you," she whispered to the sea, to the light, to the fox, to everything. The breeze brushed past her, carrying her words out across the waves. She smiled softly and began to walk along the shore. The sand was cool beneath her feet, the tide low and tender. The world was new again not louder, not busier, just newly awake. Behind her, the cove glowed with the gold of early morning. Ahead, the ocean stretched toward infinity, calm and gleaming. Each step she took was slow and mindful, her heart open to the quiet beauty of the moment. She didn't know where she was going, but for the first time, it didn't matter. She was already home. The sea sang behind her, low and endless. The wind tangled softly through her hair. The world was breathing, and she was breathing with it. Elara looked out one last time toward the horizon, where the fox had disappeared, and the sun had fully risen. "I will remember," she said gently, and as she walked forward, the waves brushed her footprints away, leaving only light. The candle has burned through the night, and now its flame rests in the arms of the morning. Elara walks with peace in her heart, and the sea carries her story into eternity. As you drift into rest, may your dreams be calm and kind, filled with light that never fades, and tides that always lead you home. Thank you for joining Elara by the sea tonight. If this story has brought you peace, gently press like and subscribe to Candle by the Sea so that more moments of calm, quiet light, and peaceful dreams may touch your nights. Until next time, let your soul rest where the waves whisper softly, and may the candle within you forever glow. Good night, sweet dreams.